People always negate responsibility. The system's designed to help you. It offers excuses to you for your actions, whether it's religion, whether it's school, whether it's society, whether it's media, whether it's the culture. Society always seems to take away the onus of responsibility from people and offer people excuses in replacement from the responsibility. You're always a victim of circumstance if you're guilty of something. So if you do something, it's because, you're brought up in a particular place. You couldn't help it. Your surroundings were like that. You never knew any better. You were taught that way. It's what your parents taught you. Well, today, guys, if you want to be excused from your faults, from the faults of the system, I'll give it to you. But you're not getting off the hook that lightly. You're guilty of sloth, laziness, your inability to want to improve, having no discernment, no self-study, and you don't want to make the world better. So you can provide all the excuses you want, Mr. Policeman, Mr. Doctor, Mr. whoever it is, and say, well, I'm just carrying out the orders of the system. I'm going to do what the system tells me to do, whether it's a medical experiment, whether it's beating people for not wearing something, if I'm a policeman, I'll do whatever I want. Because I'm told, by the system, that's what I'm paid to do, man. It's what I'm paid to do, If I'm paid to do it, it doesn't matter what I think's right and wrong. I'll just do what I say. Because, you see, the reason they employed me was because I don't think. The reason they employed me was because I will just carry out whatever they say because I want my money. Because I'm more interested in money than I am in what's right for my children, whether what's right for the world, for pollution, for nature, for anything like this. It doesn't matter. Just so long as I get my paycheck, everything's okay. Everyone's a victim of circumstance, If you're rich and you go to school and you become a doctor, then, you're trained to carry out what the medical profession says. You're not supposed to think, just carry it out. The Hippocratic Oath was changed not so long ago. The words, I will do no harm, apparently have been taken out, which means that if you wish to do harm to somebody, then it's perfectly possible for you to do it now. If you're a soldier, you're a victim of circumstance. Just carrying out orders. Well, the Nuremberg trials, they said that just carrying out orders isn't good enough to excuse you. But hey, this video is not about, culpability and responsibility. I'm giving you the ability to actually take on and dismiss the responsibility of your actions. But I am accusing you of sloth. And I'm accusing you of not wanting to make the world better and not wanting to study. That's what I'm accusing you of. Because if you did do that, if you did want to study, if you did want to make the world better, if you had empathy, if you had any guile or gumption or balls, then you would be doing exactly what needs to be done at this present stage for humanity. If you're poor, we overlook the fact that you needed to steal. Well, he's poor, so he had to steal. Oh, he's a doctor, he's just carrying out what he needed to. He's a policeman or a soldier, just carrying out orders. Okay, fine. If you're rich, then you're allowed to oppress people. You're a victim of circumstance if you oppress people. If you're a slave owner, well, you're a victim of the times, aren't you? Because the times allowed it, so that's okay. If you're a man and you oppress women, well, that's all right, because victim of circumstance. I just happen to be a man, and in past bygones, it was perfectly accepted for that to happen. The Nuremberg trials put people, soldiers, guards in prison for following orders. They were culpable of not thinking for themselves, for being weak, for doing bad things, because someone told them to do it instead of standing up for themselves or for other people. So in effect, they had the inability to refuse. They had the inability to say no. Because whenever you say no to any authority, be it police, parent or school, you're hit. What happens in society is you are told to back down, to appease, to acquiesce, because you are not allowed to say the N-word. And the N-word is no. So how did these people become like this? Because the rebels, always the rebels, the ones at school, always the ones that stand up for society, they're always the ones that get thrown out of class. So how did it come like this, Well, the system did it. The system trains people to be yes, yes people, to comply with the system, alright? To comply. But as I've just told you, the Nuremberg trials have said that you are culpable and responsible for complying. And this basically means that the system teaches you to comply, but you can be punished for complying. But the school will never tell you that you can be punished for complying. The school only teaches you that you can be punished for not complying. And this is the irony of school. How can the school sets itself up? You must comply. If you don't comply, you can't learn. If you don't learn, you can't go to uni. If you don't go to uni, you can't get money. If you don't have money, you can't get a child. But at the same time, if there's a war and people are killing and murdering, assassinating, raping and doing medical experiments of people, and you comply, as long as your side wins, you get away with it. But if it doesn't win, you become culpable for not saying no. You become culpable for not doing, you become culpable for doing what the school said. So you are punished for doing what the school says in this instance. Now surely, a school which is a bastion of education that purports itself to be teaching its children the right thing, that purports to stand up to society, that's woke, that's gender fluid, that's non-racist, that's bisexual, gendersexual, bisexual, trisexual, polysexual, trisexual, animal sexual, speciesism, animalism, whatever it is that you want, alright? The school's there to teach you, right? To stand up for the good. But here's the thing, right? To stand up takes balls. To stand up means to stand up to authority. And since when has the school ever taught you to stand up to authority? The number one thing at school is the school rules. It is authority. You must not stand up to authority. Acquiesce. And so in the times that we have now, the 2020, 2021 times, it's a test. We're in a test at the moment. This is a filtering system. What's going on? It's to see who complies and who doesn't. This is a filtering system. It's a test. Are you going to comply or are you not going to comply? Well, if you comply, you can go to work and you can get a job. You can go home on time. You can be the teacher's pet, yeah? You can get a good score, you can get a job, you can pass your exams. But if you don't comply, you get arrested, you go to prison, you get detention, you get reported to your parents, you get a little spanking. That's what happens if you don't comply. So can you see how the government and the school, it's just the same thing, one for children and one for grown-ups. Now if you don't comply, they're going to know who you are, because there'll be a passport. There'll be biological security checks to make sure that you have complied. And if you don't comply, you'll be punished. You might have your children taken away from you. You might be fined. Your life will be changed. And that's the punishment for not complying. Now, if the Nuremberg trials stated that you are culpable, even if you are being told to do something bad, what that actually fundamentally means is that ultimately you, my friend, have responsibility for your mind. It's your responsibility to know right from wrong, to think, act freely and morally. And to do this, funnily enough, you have to educate yourself, not depend on the school to educate you. And that depends on you having gumption and volition to go out and study, to research. But the thing is, school makes it such a shitty the problem is that school makes it so difficult to study. It makes it so boring with pointless things that are never going to be of any use to you whatsoever. School doesn't teach you how to cook, how to fight, what the law is, how to stand up to police, how to stand up to authority, how to do bits and bobs in your house, how to do mechanics, how to write important emails. School doesn't teach you what you need to know School just teaches you crap, and then it makes sure that you abide by its rules, because it's the obedience it's teaching you that's preparing you for society, not those things in textbooks. And the things in textbooks, they've often got it quite wrong. So you ultimately have responsibility for your mind. Yeah, that's what the Nuremberg trial said. You have responsibility for your mind. So if Hitler tells you to do something, the schools tell you to do something because Hitler Youth tells you to do something, Hitler's textbooks tell you to do something, and you believe it and carry it out and do what you're told, you can go to prison for it if it's wrong. So the only way to get out of this is to go and do the research yourself. It's not to believe what the state teaches you. And the national curriculum is what the state teaches you. It's an entire curriculum for the whole country to sort of make everyone equal. It's not to make everyone equal, it's just to make everyone think the same way. Because if everyone thinks the same way, or programmed the same way, when you give them something, they'll react in the same way. So they become reactionable. You can sort of prophesize their reactions. You know how they're going to react to stuff. And that means that they become controllable. That's the way you've got to look at it. You have the ultimate responsibility for your mind. It's your mind. By the way, it is your mind. I don't know if anyone's told you this, but it is actually your mind. By the way, it's actually your body as well. Did you know you can do what you want with your body? Did you know that to a degree, as long as you don't hurt other people? It's also your mind. Your mind's more important than your body, but the school's already got control over your mind, so social media and things like that. But it's yours. You do actually have a right to it. You were born with it. It was assigned to you by God. So you have to research. You have to question. You have to discern. And that's what they should be teaching you in school, but they're not. What they're teaching you is that your emotions are more important than logic and fact. What they're teaching you is to get carried away by emotions and propaganda, instead of being discerning and looking at the facts. Yeah? That's what school's teaching you. So you don't have the abilities and the capacity to actually discern and to look and to analyze things. The greatest threat to humanity, believe it or not, is actually tyranny. That's the problem. And tyranny's always existed. Alexander the Great was a tyrant. Julius Caesar was a tyrant. We praise them for their great accomplishments, but they were actually tyrants. They went around beating people up. Genghis Khan, Ottoman Empire, British Empire. These people are tyrants. What they do is they impose their ideologies onto other people because they believe their ideologies are better, and they force people to change to their ideologies. And you can see Christians and Muslims and all sorts of people doing things like this. And so, if you look at your history, which is something you're supposed to be taught in school, yeah, you're not supposed to be taught bits of history. Like one bit here, one bit there. You need to have a very clear understanding of entire history, general history. You need to go right from the beginning, right to now. Yeah, it's like looking at an instruction manual and picking out page 20 and 32 and 43. No, because history tells you patterns that happen and how to see patterns and how to get out of them. It teaches you to be wary. Yeah, it teaches you to be discerning, but you don't have that capacity. So tyrants have been going on for about 3,000 years or more, depending if you believe in the Indian sacred texts and Egyptian and people that have written books claiming that our civilization goes back 9,000 years. You can go and look at Graham Hancock for that. So the school should imbibe students with the qualities, but it doesn't to be able to withstand tyranny, to see tyranny. But it doesn't. It turns the students into wimps. The problem is that our school system is the secret arm. It is the invisible arm of the new tyranny. You see, in the past, what's happened was tyranny, when it came, it was an outside force. So you had these big nasty people on horses raping and killing children, and they came in and they dismantled. No, this time it's different. This time it's not an outside force, it's an inside force. It's not an outside thing, it's an inside thing. I was going to say the V word, but I'm not allowed to say it. So what happens is you start them young. You start to put, so when another force comes into a society, it wants to change the society to how it sees the world. So what you do, instead of doing it by force and battle and having an adversary, what you do is you infiltrate it into the education system so that the children grow up thinking differently, thinking how you want them to think. And then when they think how you want them to think, then you can get them to do what you want them to do and be like you. So if school really believes tyranny is wrong, and most of the time school is a tyranny in itself, but if school does believe tyranny is wrong, school has to admit it happens, which it does through its history books. And it has to admit it does threaten humanity. So why doesn't the school teach the skills in order to see it, to stand up, to withstand instead of doing the opposite? So school is not your friend. School is your enemy. And the schools don't teach you to be able to see it and to stand up. And they don't teach you tools to encounter tyranny. Because if they did, the students would riot against the school. Because they would realise what the school actually is. Because they would realise that the principles of changing a society that Hitler used are used in teaching people things at school. I don't know if you can hear me now. I'm on the bridge. It's very beautiful. I've got the water behind me. I don't know if you can see the water. There you are, there's the water. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. Yeah, the mountains. I've got some mountains, yeah. No tyranny here. But then again, you can never see tyranny. Tyranny never shows its face. Because tyranny's a coward. Yeah, tyranny can live amongst beautiful things. And everyone says, oh yeah, but you know, everything's so beautiful. You know, oh look, there's lots of trees and, you know, there's lots of people walking around. Tyranny's silent. You can't see tyranny. Yeah, it's very clever how it works. It never wants to show its face. Yeah. And so that's why you need to have the schools to see tyranny. Tyranny exists in people's minds, you know. It's like a mind virus, you know. Colin Wilson wrote a good book called The Mind Virus. I suggest people read that. It was actually quite a surprisingly good book. I think he wrote it to prove that he could write science fiction. But it's a nice book. It's quite thin as well. Colin Wilson, good bloke. So going back to our history lesson at school. So school loves to teach about Jesus, loves to teach about Churchill, loves to teach about Martin Luther King, loves to teach about Malcolm X, or loves to teach about Ali, loves to teach about all these people that stood up to authority, yeah, and paid the price, yeah. Those people that helped millions, the martyrs, you know, because we love martyrs, you know, Joan of Arc as well. Get a woman's name in there so people don't think I'm sexist. So, you know, all of these people, you know, they stood up to authority. Boudicca, there you go, there's another one. Boudica or Boudicca, that's another woman. She's a British one that stood up to the Romans. She put swords on the side of her chariot and ran through the Roman flanks. Not sure how much good it did, but that's a decent woman. Amazon women. Amazon actually, I believe, means female fighter or something. Not quite sure, you don't quote me on that, but we need to include the women here. So the school goes around, right, telling you about all these fantastic people, okay, telling you they stood up to society and they changed and we should emulate them and be like them. Yet most of these people, yeah, would have stood up to the school system. The school system only teaches you because it has to pretend it's not biased, because it has to pretend that it's showing all sides, because it has to say, well, these people did do good, you know, even though we killed them and hated them. You know, they tried to send Ali to prison for being a conscientious objector, you know. So, you know, what they do is they say, oh yeah, it's sort of like having a black friend, isn't it? You know, I'm not racist, I've got a black friend. You know, we're free and liberal. We teach Jesus, Churchill, King and Ali. We don't believe in their principles, but we teach them so you can't accuse us of anything nefarious. So when did school teach you to stand up to authority? Well, I suppose, you know, it goes, well, Black Lives Matter, everyone's taking the knee. But then again, taking the knee and Black Lives Matter, that was usurped, wasn't it? It's like, you know, Me Too movement, that was usurped as well. You know, all of these movements, right, that get set up, Christianity, Islam, Me Too, you know, Take the Knee, Black Lives Matter, they all start on really good principles. And then what happens is, they, you know, people, malicious entities, you know, see the value in contorting and inverting them and using them for people to turn against the people, you know, black against white, old against young, you know, all under the guise of wokeness. It's all right to learn about Churchill, you know, because he stood up to the Nazis, and, you know, we all now stand up to Nazis. It's good to talk about Ali, because he stood up against, you know, white oppression and all sorts of things. And it's good to talk about Martin Luther King, because he was standing up against the system as well, you know. And it's good to talk about Jesus, because he was standing up against the Pharisees at the time, authority, you know. So it's good to stand up against authority, but not the school authority. Even though the school authority is the same authority that all those people were standing up to. But we won't tell you about it. Because the people that wrote the school curriculum are the people in government, which are the people punishing those people, past, present and future, that I've mentioned, those famous people. Yeah? But the school won't tell you that. The school's very clever. The school's very clever. You need someone to tell you how it actually works. The school does to dissenting children what it does to famous dissenting people. It punishes you. Alright? And so you need to learn how to deal with being punished. Yeah? You need to learn how to be clever. You need to learn how to, you know, try to say what you need to, but not get into too much trouble. Like Snowden. If you look at Snowden went to Russia when he was going to rebel, whereas Julian Assange didn't. And look what happened to Julian Assange. So Snowden learnt from Julian Assange. You've got to learn, yeah, what happens when you don't do things properly, when you're going to rebel. So rebellion has to be an art form. It has to be cleverly done. It has to be executed quite well. Rebelling by throwing stuff at cars and smashing stuff up, you know, like an idiot anarchist. Nothing wrong with anarchy, but if you understand what anarchy is. But this is the problem. Most people don't understand what things are. Yeah, thuggery, stupidity, mindless violence. Yeah, that's what they want you to be. That's what the authority does, so that they can label you as bad. You mustn't react to the authority. That's why the police are firing bullets at people in Australia. It's to get a reaction, because once the reaction comes, it gives the police a much better excuse to come down on you harder. If a teacher annoys you enough that you react with rudeness, the teacher then can punish you even more and get away with it. And I've seen it. I've seen teachers annoy students, yeah, so that the student reacts, swearing at them. They get sent to the headmaster and get expelled. Teachers know how to do it. You're not allowed to challenge a teacher. You're not allowed to challenge a headmaster. You're not allowed to challenge a school. Because the teachers, you know, teachers aren't teachers. Teachers are there for the money. They're part of the system. There are some that are really good, you know. I suggest you read Chatto. Chatto wrote a really good book on education. He's really good. But if you're going to look at the system's working on metaphysics as well. It's working on energy. You have to talk about matrices. You've got to talk about other worlds. You've got to talk about demonology. You've got to talk about all the things no one wants to talk about. You can't just talk about one thing. Yeah? It's like you've been served a dish in a restaurant and you just talk about the tomatoes. But the dish is full of tomatoes, spinach, potatoes, salad and all sorts of other stuff. But you just concentrate on one thing. You can't tell someone what the dish tastes like or what the dish is if you just talk about one ingredient. The problem that we're facing at the moment, it's a massive problem. It takes years to understand it, years to study. That's why the people that talk about it, they're not young, they're old, because they've seen what's happening. They've read, yeah, and they've witnessed. The young people still yet, they know something's up, they know something's wrong. They know little bits and bobs, but they can't quite put their finger exactly what it is. And so the young people need to listen to other people to sort of fill them in, because that's real education. So when you punish the children and the teachers and the headmasters, the children need to accept that they aren't powerful. So they're basically being told, I don't have power. When in fact they do have power. Everyone has power. But the school's taking the power away by saying, when we punish you, there's nothing you can do about it. So don't even hope, when you're an adult, don't even hope of challenging, because at school it doesn't work. So in the big world it doesn't work. The teachers are the referees and the judge, and they are the civil people. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hola. Ah, ok, bueno, voy a ver si yo puedo hacer. Chiquito. Trying to catch a cow. No, se fue. Tiene miedo. I'm dealing with animals. Are they trying to have sex? The big one's trying to have sex with the small one. I'll see if I can help him really. Oh, que tiene. Bueno, yo tengo. So I've got the big ones now. Alright, yo tengo. I don't think he needs my help anymore. I've done my best. I've done my best to help some cows. I'm not a farmer really. Wouldn't mind being one, but I feel a bit useless actually. Anyway, where was I? So school. What school does is it takes your power away. It shows you that you don't have power when in fact you do. So it lies to you. The school doesn't say to you, we're going to punish you, but you've got the right to challenge us and stand up to us. No, what the school does is say, how dare you speak to me like that? How dare you challenge me? Look at your insolence. School even has a word for it. When you stand up to authority, it's called insolence. Yeah? It's not called courage. It's not called balls. It's not called gumption. It's called insolence. So your act of standing up is actually inverted. Now the thing is that there's a lot of idiots that stand up to authority, and you mustn't think that standing up to authority is always good. Sometimes good authority is there to help contain society and protect people. There's nothing wrong with authority if it's good. The problem is who controls it and is it good. And you should have your own authority as well. It shouldn't just be outside of you. It should be your authority as well. And especially for kids. Kids need authority. The problem is there's no one to give them good authority. It's all very well saying kids need discipline and authority. But if the discipline is taking their authority away, or the authority is taking their authority away, then how is that good? It's not good. It's terrible. If you stand up to anything and anything you say is on the verge of racist, sexist, ageist, religious, you get sent to a psychologist. Yeah, your parents are told, that they're bringing up a renegade, right? And a lot of the stuff, when it's coming to things like gender fluidity and sexuality and race, there is a lot going on. There's stuff called white privilege, but then there's like toxic masculinity, and there's like guilt, white guilt, white privilege, white guilt. There's all sorts of stuff going on. And the school's telling you what you can believe in and what you can't. You have to let people believe in things that you disagree with for a free and fair society, especially when they're young. You can't tell them that when they're older they can believe what they want, but at the moment they can't. No. Your job is to give them information on both sides, but information is not given on both sides, it's given on one side. So if the Nuremberg trials say it doesn't matter what Hitler, you, or the upper school, or your university thought, you ultimately have responsibility. So then when the teachers tell you to believe in something, you have a right to say, no, I refuse, because if you are wrong and I carry out orders based on your ideology and cosmology, I can go to prison if there is another Nuremberg trial. ¿Has hecho? Estoy terrible, no puedo... Ah, okay. So therefore, school is a hypocrite. It tells you to stand up to authority, as it teaches you to do so in the history books, when the great people that. So for America, you know, you stood up to authority. You stood up to the British. You know, and now you're not allowed to stand up to the teachers. Yeah, the tyrannical people. You're not allowed to stand up. So school always teaches the opposite. When did school teach you your rights when you're arrested? When did school teach you what's legal and illegal? I know in America the people know their rights a lot better than in England. But the English people need to know their rights as well, especially if you're young. Why doesn't school teach you that? When the police come into your house, the police try to arrest you, which is authority, why doesn't the school teach you, you know, how to deal with authority, how to deal with the police? Why doesn't the school say, look, you know, these are your rights? It doesn't. What the school does is it says you must comply with the police, be a good boy and do what's said. Schools never issued tools to help students counter authority, never toughen them up to stand up to judges, police, lawyers, mobs, finance directors. All school does, it teaches you to be scared of them and to delegate the job of rebellion to other people so they can be written about in history books for you and your children to learn and think about. So that's what school does. It delegates the responsibility of the hero to other people. It's not you. You're not the hero. You're not good enough. Yeah, you might get hurt. You might get shot in the eye. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, don't do this. Don't do that. Yeah. So it delegates power to other people because you're not good enough to hold that power. Yeah, it's wrong. You might break the law. You might get into trouble, and we don't want to do that. The problem is that the people aren't the problem. It's the tyranny that's the problem. Yeah, it's the school, it's the authority which is the problem. So school teaches you to be a coward, to wait for others to do your dirty work, to be scared of losing your job, like the police officer.
At the end of the day, you got guns.
Look, at the end of the day, I agree with you.
Then why are you standing on this side and not with us?
Because that's what I get paid to do.
So you agree with me, but you get paid to do that, so you stand on that side.
Why I'm trying to talk to you.
Yeah, he's scared of losing his job because he can't pay for his family. He's scared. Yeah, it teaches you to turn against your friends. At school, you're always told to snitch on people if they do something wrong. You know, so if a child is taking drugs, you snitch on the child. Yeah, because he's taking drugs, and then he gets expelled. Well, maybe the child's taking drugs because he's being beaten by his mother and father at home. Oh, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Just don't think of the bigger picture. Just think of the smaller stuff. Yeah. However, however, drugs are bad. And if people are selling them in the school, I think it should be reported because that's very bad. But the problem isn't the person selling them. The problem is the society. The society needs to change. It needs to get better. So always report that. School is a great idea if it actually did what it says it was going to do. Oh, señor! Señor! Está aquí. We're having a problem with the cows. This is a Colombian way of doing it, I think. So one cow wants to have sex with the younger cow, and he's trying to stop it. And the other cow's scared of people. Yeah, it's a problem I don't feel I'm educated really to deal with. I don't quite have the skills to deal with this. I'd probably take it to a school counsellor or something. Probably the best people to deal with it. School counselling. Have you been emotionally hurt by watching animals have sex in public? We'll put you on diazepam and Ritalin to help you. Anyway, no, that's neither here nor there. So anyway, school's a great idea, just as the police are a great idea, just as the military's a great idea. But they actually have to do what they're supposed to do. They have to do what's printed on the packet, and they don't. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.